Alright everybody, welcome back for another video of Virtual Warfare, text-based roleplay fighting tutorial series. And today's video is going to be another talk video. And I know we did a talk video a while ago, and it was about auto-scaling, it was about loopholes, and it was about other inconsistencies that's in the system. Now, this is a slide video. I haven't done a slide video in a long time, and we're going to talk about a few things in this video. But before we begin, I really don't know what to say. So I'm not trying to rush through the video, but also I'm trying to make it a quick and easy video so that people can know the point, understand the point, and move on from the point. So if I forget anything, I guess that's on me. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. So we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about metagaming. Everybody knows what metagaming is. We're going to talk about hypotheticals. You know, everybody has an idea what hypotheticals are. And we're going to talk about controlling characters. Now, this isn't to be confused with character control. You know, we all know the guideline or the auto character control, which is, you know, controlling your opponents without any consent from them. You know, that's character control. But we're going to be talking about controlling the character. So it's going to be a talk. It's going to be, you know, like a review a little bit, and also it's going to have a small lesson at the end. You know, the small lesson is going to be about certain things about hypotheticals and character control. So the first one we're going to talk about is metagaming. Now, metagaming is applying a certain type of knowledge or action that will usually take any outside source to exist, thought of, or to be accurate. You know, so metagaming is, you know, applying any information that's gathered that you received, not from the game itself, not from the end game, but from, you know, just by reading the post. You know, I'm going to give some examples later on. Another definition is auto-indeterminate factors or variables without any prerequisites that are empirically experiential. You know, gaining information or determining factors and variables that aren't really apparent without any prerequisites that's being shown or that exist in the fight. You know, so some of those examples are pretty simple. One of those examples is, you know, for example, a surface example, meaning like something that's pretty basic, something that's tangible, something you can see. It says like automatically knowing your opponent has a knife on them. You know, so if an opponent says that, you know, I have a hidden knife in my back pocket, and you say, you know, you say that your character goes behind your opponent and to grab the knife, you know, and how did you know that knife was there? You know, the only way you knew it was there because you read about it, and that's the only way you knew, the knife is there. But without any prerequisites that shows that the knife was there, you could never know. You know, something had to show, or something had to exist to show empirically that the knife was present. That's like a more surface level. Now, a more complex level is, you know, that requires more expertise. Is based on decisions that are made, like a player chose to do what they did. You know, some instances it goes on around auto scaling. If you guys know about auto scaling, I talk about that a lot in my videos, you know, because it's something it's a new revelation about the system that people don't apply or people don't know about. So I try to talk about it often to get people on board. And auto scaling is, you know, for example, say, you know, my opponent, you know, shoots a Kamehameha blast that does that has like a 500-pound force to it, right? And it's my turn to go, and I say, oh well, I'll give out a 600-pound force to deflect it. How did I know that it would take 500 pounds, 600 pounds to deflect something that's? How did I know it was 500 pounds to begin with? And how did I know to choose to use 600 pounds to, you know, deflect the blast? That would be auto scaling. Now, that's that is metagaming, because you auto scale. The only way you knew it was 500 pounds because you read about it. but you didn't show any type of way of knowing how you knew it 500 pounds. You just chose 600 pounds and chose to deflect it through that that weight, the pound. Now, a deeper complex is I had this fight before. You guys probably seen the fight. I was fighting this dude, and he said he came out the portal. First he came out the portal. He started tossing his axe in the air and started doing stuff, right? Then I started to charge up and I started to do stuff, blah blah blah. But he changed, which is pretty legal. But he changed his actions and said that, I think he said he came out and just like start shooting up the place, like not shooting up the place, but like he came out the portal and started attacking me from the rip. I'm like, yo, like how did you know? What made your character attack somebody who was just standing there, right? And his fallback was that my character attacks anything, like it's on berserk mode or it's on aggro mode, where whatever I see, I just keep attacking. So with that said, I pretty much just used that against him, and he didn't respond, but I pretty much was like, I charged, pretty much I dodged his attack. And I started to charge, and I started to charge and wait patiently for him to respond, because if he's so aggro or if he's so determined to attack me whenever a chance he can get, that means while I'm charging, he would try to attack me then. Like it's impossible for him to say 1 minute, oh, I'm attacking because my character is in raid and I attack anybody I see, then turn around and say, oh, I'm going to be patient and not attack you and be strategic in my approach. Like, you can't choose both, so the metagaming was him just decided just to choose to attack me out of the blue for no apparent reason while I was doing something. Now, if he stated the reason inside the fight, it would have been different, but he had to step out of character, which is another thing that's mentioned. It's called paragaming, and paragaming is explaining something that should have been explained inside the match. So you can't step out of character and say, oh, my character is in aggro mode, that's why I attacked you out of nowhere. This is also a form of metagaming, because you didn't imply that your character was going to act a certain way because you didn't know the circumstance that would benefit you or cause a disadvantage of you to actually say anything about that. So, but when you know the circumstances now, you step by the character and say, oh, my character is this because X, Y, and Z. But if that was the case, why didn't you mention it during the fight? Why didn't you write those things inside the fight? So therefore, it's paragaming. Like, you're playing the game beyond the parameters of action. Like, you're implementing information beyond the parameters of where you should already apply information. So where metagaming is, you take knowledge from outside the fight to apply it. Paragaming is you're instilling knowledge from the outside to say that, to change the context of what the fight is, or changing the narrative of what it actually is. So that's paragaming. I should have mentioned something about that in here, but it wasn't that important to talk about. So that's pretty much metagaming. Metagaming is applying knowledge from the outside, or using anything that isn't already empirically stated or empirically evident, in the fight. Trying to use that knowledge to apply it to gain upper hand in the fight. So the next one we're going to talk about is hypotheticals. Now, everybody has an idea of what hypotheticals are. Hypotheticals pretty much are written instances that a player implements describing what they would do if their opponent carries out an action corresponding to that instant. For example, do I have any examples? No, I don't have any examples. But for example, say my character. I say I duck, dodge, and I punch, and I would say I would either write it as a subtitle or I would just say if. People usually do both. People usually use it as a subtitle or head and say hypotheticals and write a list of hypotheticals that they expect to transpire. Or what I do, I would just write. Sometimes I don't even write if, but it all depends on the context of the fight. But a lot of people just write if. If my opponent ducks, then I follow the duck for sweep kick. Or if my opponent blocks, then I get prepared to do something. So they're writing down instances that they were act upon if certain circumstances transpire. So these are hypotheticals. Now, the downside of hypotheticals is allowing the opponent to metagame. You'll say players do not want to write hypotheticals with actions describing what they are planning to do if that scenario actually transpires, because it gives the opponent an opportunity to say, hey, if my opponent says that he's going to duck, or if my opponent says that he's going to do a sweep kick if I block the attack, now I know what he's going to do. So I'm going to block the attack, but position my character in a way where when he does sweep kick, I can block it, or I can counter it, or I can do whatever. So now that I know what my opponent is going to do next, then that means I have an upper hand. I can play off that scenario and manipulate my response to counteract against that hypothetical. So this is why players do not do hypotheticals with actions. Do not do that, because you will set yourself up. You will set yourself up for failure, and it gives the opponent an opportunity to know exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and when you're going to do it. That is not. You're pretty much showing your opponent your hand. And that's not very wise to do. Now, the wise thing to do is instead players should only present a form of readiness of the potential outcome in thought, not in action, not in action. And this means that players should only get prepared. Instead of saying, if my opponent does this, I'm going to do that. Pretty much, instead of saying what you're going to do, just say, I'm ready for my opponent to do this, and I'm ready for my opponent to do this if this happens, and I'm also ready for my opponent to do this if this transpires. And that's it. Don't write what you're going to do, because you're giving your opponent an opportunity to, you're giving your opponent an opportunity to know exactly what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it. But instead, you want to prepare yourself to say, look, I'm ready for this, so I'm not going to be essentially caught off guard when it does happen. Because some players or some people may use that as a way to say, oh, you're metagaming because you or God wanted because you're reacting too seamless against my counter. So if you just write a counter, say for example, say I walk into my opponent and I throw a hook, right? And I end my turn, right? And my opponent ducks the hook and sweep kicks, and I come out of nowhere. My turn says, oh, I see the sweep kick and I jump. But how can I really see the sweep kick if I'm focused on my hook, right? But you would say, as a hypothetical, before you end your turn, you would say, I'm hooking, but at the same time, I'm expecting my opponent to counter, or I'm ready for my opponent to counter. So it gives a more plausible reason for you to say, like, oh, I by being ready for this, I was able to react faster than someone who normally would if they did not notice it. So it gives you an upper hand and say, look, I said that I was ready for this. I said I expected this to happen. Therefore, it's happening. Therefore, I can react to it more effectively, because I said that through my post that I said that I was ready for it. Therefore, I can react to it. So that's how you want to use hypotheticals. You don't want to use hypotheticals like this. You don't want to write your actions down and say, oh, I'm going to do this and this and that if my opponent does this and this and that. No, you want to do that. You want to do this one. You want to say, look, I'm ready for my opponent to do this in your turn. You don't want to give all these extra details about what you're going to do. I'm trying to. Now, the last one is controlling character. Now, not to be confused with character control. Well, controlling the character control is actually like an instance where you're ordering, you're controlling somebody's character. But controlling somebody's character is pretty much it's a lesson plan that I'm going to teach. Now, Character control is automatically controlling the player's character or controlling the player's action or thought process without their consent. Now, we already know the basic one where, I said I grab my opponent, swings him around, slam him, and, and that's it. That's controlling your character. That's you're maneuvering or manipulating the body of your character without their consent. Or, what I just recently seen, somebody was fighting, somebody that I know, somebody was fighting this guy named Sonny, and he was like, he did something, but he was like, yeah, my aura would make my aura made my opponent mad, and while he's in his mad state, I do this and that. So he was actually saying that whatever he was doing was making his opponent mad, which is an automatic. You can't force a thought process, or you can't force emotions on an opponent. You can't force anything on your opponent. You can't force anything. You have to do it by an attempt. You have to do it by some plausible means that creates an equal opportunity for your opponent to escape. Now, because character control, let me get some water real quick. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Now, because character control is a big instance, and people don't know the methods of how to control people's characters without their consent, in a way. When I say without their consent, I mean not asking, hey, yo, can I control your character? Not in that way, but without their consent, meaning, using methods to where they have to fight against it. So some of these things are the band powers. We know the band powers: blood manipulation, mind control, telekinesis, or manipulating the magnetism of a person or that's on a person, be it a belt, sword, or whatever, right? But mainly these two, blood manipulation and mind control, mainly these two. People really shy away from these things and ban them altogether because, again, the method of how to effectively or fairly use these powers aren't known. They aren't known for two reasons. Well, actually, for one reason. One, they don't care about systems. They don't care about consistency. They don't care about fairness. They don't care. They don't have. Or the second one, they don't have the knowledge. They don't have the knowledge of a system. They don't know what drives the system, what makes the system hold together. And if you guys see most of my videos, I preach about the idea that auto and God mode is what hold the system together. Because of auto and, like, you can't automatically do anything. So, excuse me. If you can't automatically do something, that means you can't automatically approach someone. You can't automatically slash someone. You can't automatically control someone. You can't automatically skip steps. You can't automatically do anything. Like even metagaming is a form of autoing. You can't. Metagaming is applying. It's auto-applying knowledge. It's applying knowledge that you didn't receive in the game. So pretty much it's like an auto. You just auto knew. It's like auto knowing something that wasn't in the game, that wasn't expressed in the game. So that's an auto know. You're auto knowing. So that's metagaming it. So people really don't know the methods of how to use blood manipulation and mind control in a fair and effective way. But today, and I probably shared this before, but today is going to be, this part at least, is going to be a lesson on how, how to control a character. It's going to be a lesson for this. So first instinct, the first thing to do is to follow the basic steps, to follow the basic virtual warfare steps. Now, you guys know the basic steps of virtual warfare. For some of you guys, if you don't know, I guess I will probably leave one of those cards. I gotta put these cards. I have not done that. But I guess the little floaty cards that's going to pop up in the corner. But if that don't show, you can go to virtual training. It's all the way down at the beginning. It's like basic training, basic attacking, basic defending, basic manipulation. These are the steps that needs to be taken to not auto. So for this instant though, it would be based off of the telekinetic manipulation, whereas you focus on something, you channel that energy, you project that energy, and you grab on, or that energy is projected energy is attached to something, then you control it. So these steps are required to begin using manipulation, like blood manipulation, mind control manipulation, and etc. The second step is to state the desired implications or actions of the character. Now, if you want your character, your opponent, and you're using blood manipulation, and you want your opponent to say do jumping jacks, right? You have to state what you want them to do, which is a no-brainer. You know, you want to state what they want to do, how they want to do it, and where they want to do it. Don't just say that, you know, all blood control, you know, my opponent kills himself or whatever. Like, no, I mean, you can do that, but you have to say that, you know, I want my opponent to draw his knife out, bring it to his neck, and slice his throat, and he kills himself. You have to explain stuff in it. Like any other step, when you gotta approach your opponent, you gotta say you draw your sword, you gotta say you slash it across from left to right, whatever. You had to make a target, you have to make the effect, you know. These are the basic steps, like number one. These are the basic steps you need to follow, and it correlates with the second rule, which is a second step, which is the stated desired implications or actions of that character. The third rule is given a time frame in which each action will occur. Now, this one thing that people tend to ignore. I don't know, it just doesn't register in their mind, or because of the system that they were, you know, they experienced throughout the years of their stay in roleplay fighting, or they just don't really know how to do it, you know. But given a time frame in which these actions will occur is very essential, because you want to build a consistent event or a consistent occurrence of everything that's going to transpire, you know. So after you give the stated implications or actions that you want your opponent to carry out, then you get the time frame of those things. You know, for example, let's keep the example with the killing your opponent killing himself, right? You say that, you know, it would take about, just use seconds. It would take about a second for my opponent to grab his knife. Then it would take about a second for my opponent to put the knife to his throat. And then it would take about a second to, you know, whatever, to slit his throat and start to bleed out profusely, right? So you would need a time frame. You can't just have it happen instantaneous and say, oh, you know, I want my opponent to kill himself through this and this and that, and then expect the time just to be, you know, a no-brainer. You know, expect people to understand or to know how long it would take for that to happen. You know, you need a time frame in order to show how long these steps would take to transpire. And the last one is present a level of exertion in which the opponent has to fight against. Now, this is one of the most tricky things. Like, even for me, like, I still haven't fully understood the idea of implementing laws of exertion in a way that's truly consistent. The only thing you can do is have it as a reference point and use principles around that, like, you know, drawbacks, fatigue, you know, willpower, you know, stuff like that, to enforce or to reinforce the consistency of it, you know. But this is important because you can't just say that, you know, you control your character and they have no way of fighting against it. They should be able to have a fighting chance to stop them or stop you from controlling them, you know, even before or during the time that they are being controlled, you know. So you should present a level of exertion in which the opponent has to fight against. You know, for example, say, you know, you give the implication you give the timeline or time frame in which those implications will occur, but you also implement an idea of how much exertion or how much willpower they need to they need to fight against in order to resist being controlled. Now, the only way that they can really, because unless you have a certain character that allows your exertion to just be like so potent that it's hard to stop. Either that, or you will have to tire your opponent out and use a maximum amount of exertion. You would have to use the maximum amount of exertion and use that against your opponent because your opponent is tired and they're worn out. It would be hard for them to match your level of exertion because you're fully, you're not out of breath, you're fully energized, whereas the opponent is pretty weak, is pretty tired, and they can't match their level of exertion against yours in order to fight against that control. And that's the only way that it will work, but if you both are on the same level, of fatigue or exhaustion, it would be kind of hard. It would pretty much be like a counter. Say I attempt to control your body through this exertion, and the opponent said, no, you can't because I'm resisting it with the same amount of power. That's the only way it would cancel each other out. But if your opponent is tired and you are fully energized, then it's a no-brainer that your opponent would be too weak to fight against being controlled, and you would succeed if you go through these steps. You will succeed if you go through these steps. And there's one more thing that I wanted to mention that is not written in here, and it just came to me just before I was going to record the video, and that's seeing into the future. Now, there's no slide for that, but I guess I can share it here too. The seeing into the future or clairvoyance or whatever the case may be is also banned, right? It is because that, again, it's hard to document. People don't know the methods to document that in a fair and consistent way, and also it's just not really. It's hard to implement without the methods. It's pretty much hard to implement without the method. But the only way to do this, which I should say, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter. I'm gonna share it anyway. I want it to be secret, because I don't want people to try to abuse it or whatever, right? But I'm sharing my the powers that I know, though, the deepest powers that I know. So anyway, the way to do this, or to implement this, is to say that you use clairvoyance, and you can use that in any way you want to. You can use it as an ability. You can activate it. You can channel it. You can focus on it. You can meditate. However you would use clairvoyance to see premonitions or to see the future, whatever the case may be, you can do it that way. There's no method on how to obtain that thing, right? But once you do have that ability, the only way, which I haven't figured out any ways to go beyond this. The only way to do this is that, for example, say your opponent you throw a jab, right? Your opponent throws a jab, right? And you block, right? Realism say that you have to physically see what your opponent is going to do before you get to react and move out the way. If anybody did that, if anybody did something else besides that, without saying that they had clairvoyance, it would be auto. You can't. They would say, you can't move before I threw a punch, because that's pretty much God mode. How do you know I threw a punch? And that's the point where I'm trying to get to. How did you know it's gonna throw a punch? Because clairvoyance. Now, the only way to consistently or fairly implement that idea is to say that you have clairvoyance, and the moment your opponent thought about it, or the moment your opponent thought about it, right? The moment your opponent thought about it is when you decided to move from the block, to attack. But you got to be careful with that, because you know I can make a lesson on it later on, which I think I will. But yeah, so you can use seeing the future, clairvoyance, premonitions, or whatever. But you would have to say that you moved at the same time that your opponent is moving too. That's the only way. Anything before that, it won't fit. It won't make any sense, and you probably mess up the time frame of interruptions. It would just be weird, because for example, you know, say my opponent's going to throw a jab, right? I'm throwing a jab, and I end my turn, and my opponent has clairvoyance, and they say, before you throw a jab, I duck, and it's like, you know what I'm saying? Now it's my turn. It's like, what the? I didn't do anything yet. Like, I didn't do anything. Like, how am I going to? If you're moving before I did and I didn't do anything, then where do I stand? Like, where do I stand at? And you can say that, you know, that, or you can use this. This is why I didn't want to make this a whole teaching lesson, a whole lesson. But you can say that you can try to implement the idea that your opponent was committed. Your opponent committed to the punch. So even if you moved before they did something, they was already committed to throwing that punch. So when you moved, you know, you moved before them, but they still carried out their punch because they was already committed. You can word that in a way where it's fair and it's logical and it makes sense, but it's hard to do unless your opponent actually says so. Let me get a second. Sorry, I had a phone call. So I forgot what I was saying, but you know, the only way to actually move before your opponent is to say that, you know, they was committed to actually throwing a punch. That's the only way it would work, you know. But that's pretty much all I had to say. We went through metagaming, what metagaming is, you know, what it is. We went through hypotheticals, what not to do with hypotheticals and what to do with hypotheticals. And we looked through character control and, you know, what controlling the character means versus character control, you know, some of the band powers and how to actually use some of these bands, you know. So that's where it came from. The way that the method of how to use it came from the virtual warfare rule set. What came from in the video, I don't know, and it's all right. So that's pretty much the end of the video. Again, you know, I'm really trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. Like, it feels like it's just impossible for me to reach. I don't know what to do. And I can share my video. Like, some of the places where I do want to share my videos, people say, oh, don't advertise. Like, they're so hell-bent on saying don't advertise. But it's like what else do I do? You know what I'm saying? So I gotta go like door to door, like, you know what I mean? I don't know. But I only want 1,000 subscribers so I can like have the community thing and like post pictures and post like, you know, different documents about certain things. I can post on YouTube rather than just, you know, going on different platforms and posting. That's the only reason why I want 1,000 subscribers. But I guess stay tuned for more videos in the future. You guys know about the reviews, the Rules reviews I'm going to be doing every week. They're fun, you know, I like them. I reach out to the people who I do reviews on. And yeah, so I might start doing the podcasts again because it was just fun. I just stopped that because, like, I was doing other things and just other things came in mind. But stay tuned for the Hypothetical level or Hypothetical virtual training, which will be coming soon. And stay tuned for a lot of videos. Share, like, subscribe. You know, that would help. That would help me a lot. That would help the traffic. That would help the, you know, just encourage me. You know, just seeing people watching my videos is encouraging enough. You know, so I appreciate that a lot, you guys. So thanks for watching, and I'll see everybody in the future. Deuces.